Today we're going to be covering what is new on Eagle version 9.5. Version 9.5 just got recently released, and we're kind of excited for some of the new features that have been added. They're quite impressive, those new features that have been implemented. So let's take a look at some slides that I prepared. That way I could just kind of give you an overview of what those brand new features are. And then we'll go actually live with Eagle. So just to let you know, my name is Ed Robledo. I'm part of the Autodesk support team specialist, also part of what we call the community team. We're the ones that we host these type of presentations, as well as we do a little bit of traveling, doing presentations in the U.S. and outside of the U.S. as well. Just want to set you a reminder that PCB West is next week on the 10th, and Tuesday we'll be part of the exhibitions on the exhibition floor, which is going to be on Tuesday, and that's going to be from like 10 a.m. to like 6 p.m. And me and the Autodesk Eagle posse is going to be out there, and we'll be running a really cool factory. So I strongly advise that you go ahead and join us if you have any technical questions, or you could put your own spinner together. You will have some wave solder machines, ovens, I should say, and it'll be a lot of fun. And we'll be doing some demos of Eagle as well. So I hope you get to join me. I'll be out there with some of the guys from the Bay Area and some of the guys from Portland that are part of the Eagle team as well. Now, my name is Edwin Boleto. I'm part of support, as I already mentioned. Been with Eagle for a very long time. So as Jorge. Jorge does a lot of the documentation that we have on our YouTube presentations and tutorials as well. And now we're just going to be talking a little bit about what we did on Eagle 9.5. But before I do that, I like to present this snapshot. The snapshot will give you an idea. Ever since we became part of the family of Autodesk products, all of the work that the developers have been investing into Eagle and making it that much better of an experience when it comes time to your designs. We gone from some really simple and GUI and interfaces and tools and routing tools. It's incredible. And today, I think this is my last time using this page, Jorge. I think I'm going to have to go to page 2. I don't think I have any more space, and that's coming up really soon. So today we're going to be talking about the brand new features. That's that little square box that you see in the bottom right-hand corner. So let me just go do some overviews on what we're going to be seeing today live. First of all, one of the most exciting brand new features that were added was the fact that now you could share your libraries and not lose the mapping that you have done for your 3D models. So what we have done is that through library.io, if you've already been using Eagle and you have been using managed libraries, which in essence is a duplicate or an exact the mirror image of your local library on the cloud on library.io, it actually gives you access to your libraries remotely, as well as expands the capability of our library editor to be able to map 3D models to your assets as well and to your footprints. Now, with this capability, now you're able to go to your library.io account and create what's called a managed folder. And we're going to be using that term quite a bit. It's called now a managed folder. Once you create your managed folder, now you could invite people to join that managed folder. This managed folder, you will control the content that you put in there, and everybody that is a member of this managed folder will be able to view that content. And again, it could be accessed remotely, which is one part of it. Also, it will preserve your 3D models as well. Okay, so here I have a little snapshot of our team, our support team, that has created a couple of managed folders and have gracefully invited me. And this is how I see it in the control panel, and that's what you see on the bottom left corner right here. So I was invited to these 2 folders right here, to these 2 managed folders. And in the EEL control panel, I actually see them from here. So at that point in time, I could go into the libraries, edit them, or actually put them in use in the current design that we may be working on. So we're really excited by this brand new feature. It's pretty exciting. It's going to be of great assistance. And and a lot of people, that had been asking for it. So it's here, and it actually works really well. It's been out for over a week. We have not run into any issues with it, so it's working solid. Okay. The other thing that we added was we improved on. We had a design manager. The design manager on the board layout lets you take a look at all the assets and the descriptions, and really breaks down your design in your board layout. Well, now that capability has been added to the schematic as well. Makes it a lot easier to preview each schematic sheet, the content of each sheet, all the assets that are in that sheet or in that design that you're working on. Makes it a lot easier to find parts as well. There were several tricks that we would use to actually find components. It was not that difficult, but just having the design manager just makes it that much easier. Now, also having the design manager lets you select certain assets and make modifications to them directly from the design manager instead of you having actually to select those assets directly on the design as well. Now, another thing that the design manager does have is called filters, and that's that little tab that you see right here. And I don't want to spend another slide for this. As you can see, it's on the top right hand corner right here where it says filter. Now, filter lets you define a a selection of rules in which you could pin down exactly a group of assets that you are looking for. Let's say you're looking for all the components, and Jorge made this comment the other day, like all the components that do not have 3D models assigned to them, or components that do not have a spice models assigned to them. So you could create a filter for those, and you could actually save those filters. That way they're persistent on the current design or in other designs. They could be permanently. That way they could recur in every design that you have, and then you could just select those filters. So let's say you want to look for all your resistors of a range of value, you could do that as well. So Jorge will be demonstrating this in a minute as well. And we'll be taking care of Q&A towards the end, so don't worry about it. I will be tending to that in a few minutes, okay? Also, we actually added a brand new, well, actually, it's not brand new. We enhanced the locking capabilities of Eagle, the mechanism for locking. So now what we did is that now we have a lock all. So if you click on lock all, it takes everything that's being displayed, it just locks it up, you know. But also we have an unlock, which basically takes everything and unlocks it. But the nice thing that one we have, actually, I've taken advantage of it already, is lock layer. So if your active layer is the top layer, you can select that. So anything on the top layer stays locked. And the reason I say this one is so beneficial, because there'll be times that I'm trying to grab something that is on a different layer, and the top layer might get in my way. If that, in this case, it's the top layer. So I could just lock that layer. That way I could grab the asset that's below it, and that one will not get in my way. I know we have selection filters that helps that for that as well, but just having this locking one just makes it that much easier as well. Okay. Now, another nice, you'll notice that sometimes you'll be working on schematics, and of course, you may be grouping the functionalities that is going to be used on your design. So you group all your power, your digital, your analog, digital to analog converters, and vice versa, and you'll be grouping those. So now, what we can do is that we have something called persistent group. This allows you to select many assets and define that as a persistent group, and you can move that group, and you could actually find that group and all of the assets that belong to it from the design manager. That way you can make modifications to it if they're necessary, and you can apply filters to that as well. So it's just a brand new, really, really well done feature that we're really excited about. I really like this one as well, especially when you start moving groups. It's just really, and then you could add assets to the persistent group. You could select additional assets and say that's going to belong to a group. So there's a hierarchy in which it could be utilized for your persistent groups as well. Okay. Now, this is kind of minor, but we added it to the CAM processor, is the fact that when you actually create your manufacturing files, now it will, besides adding the bill of material, it will also add the export for your pick and place. And the export for the pick and place will include components that are on the top layer as well as in the bottom layer. It will automatically do both layers for components as well. And last but not least, actually, I got two more to go. The popularity. This one is actually pretty interesting because it actually takes into consideration designs that have been that made in Eagle and are available in public, and have been using components that are from our default library. Kind of collects that data and creates a popularity score. And when you're using the add command and adding components to your design, now you actually see this popularity score. And you're in control of it, but also you could actually create an attribute and call it popularity and assign a value that you want to use. That way it's part of your popularity. And this is, I think it's really useful, George, because if you're in a team and you have a managed library and it's part of a managed folder in which a team will have it, if it has an attribute, I could assign a popularity. That way that team will know which components I prefer to use. I think that's a really, really good idea. So I could say I could have the same resistors or a group of resistors, but if I set that popularity score, the team won't be able to know that these are the ones that we prefer if that attribute has been defined there as well. Okay.
Yeah, or you could just say that your parts are the most awesome and set your popularity to 100 for everything.
There you go. You could do that as well. Or maybe you can make an attribute and just call it awesome. But yes, so you could set that popularity to a really high score. That way, the rest of the team knows that those are the ones that you prefer to be using on your designs as well. And there's many uses that it's very scalable. It's really nice and useful how you want to manage that. Now, so to the manual to the toolbox full of manual interactive manual route tools that have been added to Eagle, which is quite spectacular. It's pretty amazing. Although now they've actually included reroute, and what this does is that if you are working with an electromechanical workflow with Fusion 360, you're able to move assets in Fusion 360, and Eagle can detect the movement and will reposition those components. But of course, the traces will remain, just shoved wherever you want. So now we have a new feature called reroute, which will actually, you could select reroute and select the asset that was selected and move in Fusion 360, and it will just reroute it. But it doesn't only have to be. This is the most common scenario that we've been experiencing, because there'll be instances that the enclosure requires the movement of a component just because of its position. It's in the way. It could be a connector, it could be a component, it could, for any X or Y reason, there will be elements or assets that need to be shifted in Fusion 360. Eagle sees the movement, and now you could just click on reroute, and then it will take all that into consideration, optimize the existing routing that was there, and place a brand new one. In this example, you could see that there was a shift on the component on the left hand side, and after using the reroute, it accommodated everything as expected. Now I'm going to go ahead and let's move over to Jorge. That way he could give us a live demonstration of this introduction that I was able to provide you. Thanks for the opportunity, and I'll be tending to the chat, so if you have any questions, go ahead. And I do see your screen, Jorge. That was pretty fast.
Yeah, I tried to pick it up as fast as I could. Everything sound okay?
You sound great, man.
Okay, cool. So let's go ahead and start with the sharing of the managed libraries conversation. That's something that we've been waiting for forever, and we're so happy to finally be able to share it with you guys. So the creation of the managed folders is all controlled through library.io. So if we go to our web browser, okay, you log in using your Autodesk account, the same one that you use to work with Eagle. That's the one you want to use. And what you'll notice is that by default, you have one managed folder, and that's the one with your name. Okay, that's the one that every Eagle user gets automatically. It has their name associated with it, and that's the default. So all of the previous managed libraries that you may have created, they're going to be in the managed folder that has your name on it. And you're going to see that you're going to be listed as the owner of that managed folder. Now, every user will have this default folder that they own. Depending on your entitlement level, free, standard, or premium, you will be limited on how many folders you can be the owner of. So for example, a free user can only own one folder, okay? Can only own one managed folder. A premium user can be the owner of up to 16 managed folders. So that only applies to ownership. You can be a member of an unlimited number of folders. So for example, if you work at a company, then you can be a member of the main company folder. You can have your own. Maybe some other coworker has a smaller team. You can be a member of all that. But as far as ownership, you're going to be limited by your entitlement. Now you'll notice over here that I can actually invite people to my personal folder by clicking on the Manage Members button. You just enter email addresses. They're comma delimited, so you separate them with commas. You can go to the Change folder to go to another folder that you're either an owner or a team member of. So you can see here, I own 2 folders myself right now. I've deleted folders previously, so you can see that you have the ability to delete managed folders. And I can switch to them. Now, when you become a member, you actually have full rights. You can edit, you can change these, you can make all sorts of adjustments. And as you can see here, we've all accepted the invitations, and that's why we're part of this managed folder. Now, one thing that's interesting, if we go to, for example, this one that I'm the owner of, you'll notice that there's this gear. So if you click on this gear, you'll see that here's where you have the option to change the name. You can delete the folder. It's also possible to transfer ownership of a managed folder, and you can also copy design assets between managed folders. So there's a lot of flexibility here. And again, it's mostly driven through the library.io website. Now, if you go to Eagle and you go to the libraries tree, you'll see that whatever managed folders you're a part of, they're going to show up here. And then you'll find your managed libraries underneath the folder. Okay. So keep that in mind. You can obviously copy and paste and add things, but the creation and the user management is all handled through library.io. See? And when you click on a managed folder, you'll see that the Eagle control panel tells you it's on library.io, what you can make changes to, etc. So this is a really powerful feature. It's one that we've been asked for a lot since the introduction of managed libraries, and we're happy to finally be able to share it with you all. So again, now it's possible to share your managed libraries with other teammates. You can share, you can create a company repository. All of that is now possible, and it's easier to collaborate with others using the new managed folder paradigm. So the next feature we wanted to show, Ed, do you want to mention anything else about managed libraries, or we're good? Okay, cool. So many new things that I always want to make sure. So now, as Ed mentioned, we now have the design manager in the schematic editor. So all the power you've grown to love in the board editor is now available in the schematic editor and then some. So if you look at the design manager in the schematic editor and in the board editor, you'll now see that it has 2 tabs internally. It has a browser tab and a filter tab. And this is the case with both of them. Okay, so this is new, browser and filter. Now, if you've used Design Manager before, everything you're used to is available under the browser tab. So all of the existing functionality of the Design Manager that you're used to, that's all under browser. Okay, and the browser in the schematic works pretty much the same way as it does on the board. So you can search through your various sheets. You can then look for net classes. You can look for anything and everything you want to look for. So if we go, for example, view nets, we have the sheet. We can pick a net class. Now we can find where these different nets are. Okay, and you can search for them. So for example, if I want my differentials, I have two differential pairs on USB. If I want to find these memory controller lines, it's very easy. You can resize, you can adjust the different parts of the design manager, so be able to display more information. Okay, so as you can see, you can view nets, you can view your parts, and then you can view groups. But we'll be talking about groups in a little bit, so I'm gonna leave that for us for a little later. So what we want to basically realize is the amount of power that's here, because for example, let's say I want to get all of these in a group. I just highlight them, and now I've formed this group. I can make changes to this group. You know, I could go to the inspector, see what's in here. I can change the width. I can make them all thicker. I can have them go to a different point. You know, so there's a lot of power here that you can just modify the group. If I want to modify a subsection, I can just highlight it and make changes to that subsection. So there's a lot of power between using Design Manager, Inspector, to really form these very specific and precise groups. Now, let's talk about filter, which is a brand new feature. As I was mentioning, a filter basically allows you to define characteristics, and then EAGLE will search through the entire design looking for items and objects that fulfill those characteristics. So if any of you are familiar with advanced queries on databases and things like that, this is kind of similar. So what you'll see here, and we're going to make a very simple example, is you can define a criteria. So object type needs to be a part, okay? I can now add a criteria, and its name needs to be, for a resistor, we know the prefix starts with an R, and I can put an asterisk. Now we have all the resistors. Anything that starts with an R. Okay, so all the resistors show up. And I want to find all the resistors whose value is greater than or equal to 100K. This might be too big, but let's see. Okay, 100K. So these are all the resistors whose value is larger than 100K. Now what's cool about this is that you can save this criteria in the design and use it later to maybe form a specific type of group. So what filters allow you to do is define these criteria, which you can then use as your design changes. So if I add 30 more resistors to this design and 10 of them are 100K and I run this filter, those 10 extra 100Ks are going to show up without me having to make any changes to the filter. So they're a way of making these very specific selections, being able to find these portions of your design. And in a complex design, this can be invaluable because very quickly you can find exactly what you're looking for. So let's look at some of the filters that have been saved, because this BeagleBone Blue 3D file that comes with Eagle actually comes with some filters that have been saved in the design, and they give you a really good look into how powerful this feature can be. So if we look, you'll see a large resistor filter, which is not too different. In fact, it's the same one that I just made. You can search for parts that don't have a SPICE model. So if you see here, this filter has been created, and you can see that 71 of the components in this design don't have an associated SPICE model. Okay, so it's a part, it requires a SPICE model, and it's not SIM ready. We have searching for specific packages. So if you want your entire design to be 0805, for example, you can make a filter to check if there's anything that's not 0805 and is a resistor and a capacitor or a capacitor. You can make a filter of searches for that. You can double check your design that you have everything with the right footprints. You can see here a more sophisticated version where it's looking for a footprint, but it's not, it wants to exclude resistors. So there's a lot of power here. Now, initially, you're going to notice that the filters here on the board, on the schematic, are different from the ones on the board. They can have independent sets. So if we go to filter, you'll see that these are different. So lots of pins, basically check components that have large amounts of pads. Okay, and if we want to make some sort of modification or we want to select them, then this is an easy way to find them. Looking for a specific trace width, they're all here. And again, as your design changes, you don't have to modify the filter. And these filters basically are part of the infrastructure, part of a big infrastructure that we're setting up so that in the future we can implement other features in Eagle. We can create rules that act upon these types of filters and things like that. So there's a lot planned for the future that is going to depend on having this functionality now, hence why it has been introduced in this version of Eagle. And again, you can form subgroups very easily. It's very easy to control. You don't have to grab everything that the filter gives you. And you have separate filter sets for the board and the schematic. So it's a very powerful feature, and we know that the more you use it, the more you're going to be able to get out of it. So let's now talk about groups. And again, groups can be formed both on the board and on the schematic. And in this initial implementation, they're independent. So you don't have a persistent group that lives on the schematic that now automatically transfers to the board. We do plan to have that functionality, but it's not in the initial release. So how does a persistent group work? Let's actually do it from the schematic. So here's where we have all of our organization. So I'm going to go to sheet 1. Okay. And in this case, the BeagleBone Blue schematic is actually very well organized right off the bat. But we're going to see that the ability to form a persistent group isn't just about having these nice little documentation blocks and things like that. So let's go ahead and form a selection. Going to right click and I can select new group. Okay, it's selectable by default. I can call it the same name that it has right there, 2A underscore 5 volt underscore regulator. Say OK, and you'll see that it will draw the outline looking at the limits of all the components. Okay, so like I said, it has the benefit that it'll form this nice squared off area and it'll put a title, and that's nice. It's something that before you had to do manually, and it's now created for you automatically when you form a persistent group. But that's not the only benefit. Let's explore what the other benefits are. So we have this regulator. Okay, let's go ahead and form a group here because this is a battery connector. Whoops. Not mean to grab the square outline. So I'll pick right here like this. Okay, I'll exclude the text. I can include it. Now we right click on a member and we can add it to an existing group, or we can form a new group. Okay, we're going to form a new group in this case. We're going to call it battery connector. I don't like to have spaces. That's why you see me put in the underscore. Okay, and again, it forms it. So if whoever drew the schematic wouldn't have gone through the effort of creating the little outlines of the different circuit pieces, this would do it for you automatically as you form the persistent groups. But let's now look at some of the possibilities. Go to Design Manager, we go to Browser, we go to Groups. Okay, and you'll see that we have 2 existing groups here that we've made. Okay, now these can be recalled at any point in time. So unlike the old selection mechanism where you would form the selection, make changes, and then if later on you realized you wanted to make some changes, you had to form the selection again. These selections you only form once, okay, because they are a persistent group. Now, persistent groups can be moved around very easily. Let me actually turn off that layer. No, I don't want to turn off the nets layer. What I do want to do is in selection filter, not grab lines. So I'll hold control there. And that way I can just make sure that I'm grabbing the group. And you can see it moves as a unit, the persistent group. And if I do want to modify something internally, I can still grab it individually. Okay, that doesn't change. But I can treat the selection as a unit. And if I select it, then if I go into inspector, everything that's in that persistent group shows up. We can make changes. We can form a subgroup. We have a lot of power by having these persistent selections that we can just come back to whenever we need them. Now, coming back to Design Manager, you'll see that we have some extra options here. Select all, select none. You can create a new empty group. And this one I'm going to call Power. Okay, and what happens is we can actually take, for organizational purposes, we can take this one, oops, sorry, just a right click, and we can say add it to Power. We can take battery connector, right click on it, add it to Power. And what's going to happen, and you guys will see, is that now you have this Power group that contains both of the previous persistent groups. So you can nest your persistent groups. And what this allows you to do is to, again, have better organization. So in this case, you can see that the rectangle is large and is spanning more area than it really needs to. But that's just because of the way these are arranged. But it's not too difficult to imagine a large complex system and then organizing it by big groups and then having subgroups within those larger groups that you can change at a moment's notice and that you can manipulate at a moment's notice. And that's the real power of these persistent groups. They're going to survive when you save the design, when you close Eagle. Next time you open, they're going to be there. So very quickly you can move things around, you can make changes, you can adjust, and it allows you to work that much more efficiently. Now, if we wanted to undo this, everything we've just shown can be undone. You just right click, we can say remove from Power, make it its own thing. Remove from Power. You can then delete the group. If we had something in the group, we could clear it. You could ungroup. Now, when you do delete versus ungroup, if you do ungroup, it deletes the group definition, but all the components stay. If you actually click delete, everything gets blown away. So that's the difference between ungroup and delete. If you hit delete, you're going to delete the group definition as well as all the components and all the objects that made up that group. So at this point, we don't need power anymore. I can just say delete. There we go. So this is something that, again, forms part of a much larger plan. It's a big infrastructure move that we've added this to Eagle, and we know you guys are going to be able to really leverage it. So let's talk about some of the other new features that Ed showed. We have popularity. You'll see that for many of the libraries in Eagle, popularity is not defined to those components. The key thing to look for is you can set up your own popularity scores, and that can be done. You know, you guys can manipulate that to whatever your workflow is. So for example, as a company, you may decide that in our managed folder, popularity is going to represent the quality of the component or how well vetted it is. So if it's a brand new part, you may give it a popularity of 10. If it's a part that you've used for 20 years, that may be a popularity of 100. And you could leverage that functionality that way. Because what happens is when you look through the add command, and a good example is RCL. RCL is a library that's used all the time by a lot of people. We go into RCL, we go into RUS, you're going to see components that are commonly used and how commonly they are used. So that's how we're using them in EAGLE's built-in managed libraries, basically looking at designs that are out in the open, how often are components used, and that's been used to determine these popularity scores. But internally, you can use popularity scores for whatever you want to do. So it's an interesting mechanism, and I'm sure that there's a lot of things we haven't thought of that you guys could leverage it for. You'll notice that you have the option to hide unpopular parts. So there's a threshold popularity that can be set. I forget where. I think it's an option set. You can set the popularity threshold, and then anything that has a lower value than that gets hidden. So there's a lot of power there and a lot of ability for sorting and interesting applications. So we know you guys will get creative with it. The other enhancement that we want to show you is the lock. So as I mentioned, 3 new options have been added to the lock mechanism, which is on the board. So we'll go over here to lock, and you'll see them here. You can just choose to lock everything, and this basically is going to avoid confusion in case somebody's looking at your design and you wants to inspect something and you really want to make sure they don't move anything. You can just lock the whole thing, as you can see here. At this point, nothing becomes movable. Anything that's already there. Obviously, if there's air wires and there's new traces and things like that, then those wouldn't be affected. But anything that's already existing basically gets locked and can't be modified. Very easy to undo the operation. You just do unlock all. So right there, everything comes back. You notice that the ground air wires, anything that belongs to a polygon, needs to be recalculated. Just hit rat's nest and it'll be reset. And you can obviously lock to the current layer. So that's another very powerful functionality, especially if you're routing or you're doing specific routes, then you can choose to lock whatever the active layer is. So I think that covers the big stuff. I think that covers, we covered sharing, we covered design manager and schematic, we've covered filters, we've covered persistent groups, lock. Yeah, I think that's what we wanted to cover for today. The ReRoute command is something that is helpful, especially when you're integrating with Fusion, where you move something in Fusion and then you come back to EAGLE and the trace is all messed up. You can just click reroute, click on the part, and it'll be corrected. And it's right here. It's one of the options. Just right click and you'll see reroute a device or signal. So it's very powerful and something that really is designed to help with the ECAD MCAD integration. Okay, so that's what we wanted to cover today. Ed, is there any questions, anything we need to answer live?
I was just typing it, but you might want to just answer it live. Is Cynthia is asking us, how are the public libraries, like RCL popularity determined? That's kind of easier to explain live than trying to type it out.
It is easier to explain live.
Sorry about that, Cynthia. I was trying to type it in, but it was just easier to do it live.
So basically, we've analyzed designs that are out in the open. So public GitHub designs that people have put up, and just whatever distribution of components that come from managed libraries there, that's how the popularity score was determined. So analyzing the designs that are out in the open, what components are being used in those out in the open designs, we come up with the popularity scores that ship with EAGLE's managed libraries. Again, anything that you do yourself, it's pretty much arbitrary. You can define it however you want it to be, and you can use that feature for whatever application you want to use it for. Hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, it's only publicly made projects, so don't.
Yeah. Don't
Okay,
freak out.
so just don't for a minute think that we're looking at designs or nothing like that. It's not even an idea. It's just only projects that have been made public. Git. So that's where that is gauging it from. That's where that score is coming from as well.
Yeah.
And I think maybe some of the most exciting ones is the design manager on the schematic, as well as the concept of managed folders. And we did have a question and answered it, but like a manufacturer, if they want to make a managed folder and just make it public, no, that if it's a manufacturer, they just have to contact us, and we'll work on them to make that available to the
Right.
public. So a managed folder can't just be,
Yeah, you can't just open it up to the
yeah, and make
universe.
it to the public. No, that's not it.
At
The
least not
only,
yet.
yeah, the only people that could see it are those that you
Right.
invite to it. Okay, so I just want to make sure that you see that as well.
Also notice that you don't want to open up a managed folder to the universe right now because you have no way of controlling, of limiting access. In this initial release, whoever you invite has the same rights as you do to change the libraries, to add to them. So imagine, inviting the universe into your managed folder and people just trashing the living daylights out of it because they don't know what they're doing, or they make mistakes or whatever. So that's
exactly,
why
and
initially you can't just open it up to the universe.
always assume that anybody else's libraries are wrong. Okay, yes, 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 some advice there.
It sounds horrible, but it's kind of true.
Always assume that the libraries that you plan to use, unless you made them, they're wrong. So go with that. That way you just avoid having respins on your board, or you got 5 prototypes and the wrong footprint was used. Okay, so at this time,
Anything on the
I,
chat?
I do. If I had a lock, so this is by Summit. So he's asking, so if I had lock all drills, and then I want to inspect my design and lock all, now I want to undo that lock all. So how do I restore those specific lock drills?
So just unlock all.
Yeah, I would just select the option lock all.
Yeah, that would be the elephant gun solution if you wanted to have more fine grain control. What you could do is you could go to selection filter, just pick vias as your one object on whatever layers you're interested in, form a massive group, and then after you form that massive selection, you can click the lock command, control right click shift, and you'll unlock the
And
whole
you
group
do.
of vias.
Mhm. Yeah, this is when you want to take advantage of the selection filter, and just select the entire design as the selected assets.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's your best bet.
Yeah, selection filter is your friend.
I can't we can't stress that enough. I was just about to say it. Selection filter is your friend. It's very powerful, extremely useful. That way you make sure that you're not selecting assets that you didn't want them to add, or you could really filter and drive exactly what you're trying to select. And also on the filters that you were mentioning, Jorge, earlier as well, a nice thing is that, let's say you could use it to pin down a particular a footprint that is being used. That way you could switch them to another one if you wanted
Yeah,
to. So let's say if, for example, you could create a filter of all the 0603s resistors of 100K. That way you could switch those to 0805s because that's what you have on storage,
right,
for example. So yes, filters, there's a lot of advantage to using these filters, just because that maybe that reel was cheaper or something like that,
right.
or that's what somebody found it at the bottom of the closet in the storage room somewhere. Okay, so found that reel.
All those hypothetical situations that never happen.
You never know.
Yeah.
Are non-editable library links in the works? Yes. So they are working on administration capabilities.
So I guess you're talking like read only writes and things like that.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's all in the works. But if we keep waiting, you guys would just want to kill us more.
Yeah,
So
so there was yeah, we've been wanting to get this out as soon as possible. I think we wanted to get it out as much as the people wanted it as well,
yeah,
so the team really diligently worked on this to get it done as fast as possible and as sustainable as possible. And I really think they have a solution. So now those type of administration capabilities will be added to it as well.
yeah,
Summit says the selection filter and inspector is the best duo.
they are dynamic duo, Batman and Robin. Yeah.
Yeah, that is. You're absolutely, yeah. They have capes and they have a cape and tights. So
You th-
absolutely,
you think DC can sue us for saying Batman and Robin on the webinar?
I don't know. I'm not recording. Oh, actually,
Yeah,
YouTube
we
is.
are recording.
Yeah, we are recording. Sorry about that. Okay, yeah, yeah. We'll tell our producer to edit it. Okay. Let me see.
I'll claim fair use.
Will you add a feature to export PCB to step? We already have that.
Yeah, that's already there, man.
Yeah, a step file to open up in other CAD Pro. Yeah, so
Yeah, file,
yeah,
export, step.
and then once you do that, that's actually a cloud-based function. So it may take, depending of the complexity of the board, it may take a few minutes. And then, can you show them the control panel where they're going to get the results, George?
Yeah.
Can you just bring up the so that's going to start calculating. That's a cloud-based calculation, and then you'll get an email and you will get a letting you know that it's finished. And then on the control panel, as Jorge is showing you here, if you go to your home tab on the control panel, it lets you know when it's finished right there, as you could see it there, or you could see the progression of it. But yeah, that's been available already.
Yeah, for a
We've
little
had
while.
that for a little while now. So that's been available. Okay. um Let me see if I on over here, see, and I don't have nothing on Q&A. So I guess we basically wanted we so well, actually we're still within the hour, so we did well. Yeah,
Woo!
I had scheduled an hour for it, so I think we did really well. We started just a tad late to just set up the logistics to go live broadcasting on YouTube. So we're really glad that you made it here. And next week, I don't think we have a webinar scheduled, but I will be at PCB West. So please visit us and also join our discussions on the forum. So if you type Autodesk EAGLE forum, we got a really active forum, and we got some really good expert elites there. So if you're looking for any type of advice or usage of EAGLE within your environment, go ahead and ask them. Some of our guys have maybe the best environments you could ever imagine to use. Any workarounds for when trying to render PCBs in Fusion 360? The green solder mask does render properly. A green mask with yellow tint does not seem right. Is there a way to change the solder mask color? Yeah, sure there is. Yeah, we've had that for a while.
Yeah, if you go into, let's do it.
Yeah, you just go to the manufacturing flyway menu and you can do it from there. Sure. Yeah, we've had that for a while, Isaac.
Manufacturing, you go over here. You click on the configurator preview. You pick the color, the solder mask color. This one has blue. You can pick whatever color you want. Let me pick something. I wanted to pick something crazy, but then I'm like, let me pick something reasonable. Let's pick this. And there we go. Kind of reasonable. Kind of.
Once you save the file and now you push to Fusion, it will come up
It'll come up with that color.
with that color. So Cynthia is actually also recommending to add screen, like create a screenshot of the top and the bottom of the board in PNG format as part of the manufacturing files. It's actually not a bad idea.
Not a bad idea.
That's not a bad idea either. So yeah, I'll suggest that as well.
Yeah,
So
some
that's a really
some
good idea.
image export.
Cynthia always has the best ideas and the best questions as well. So okay, so I think we've covered everything we wanted to cover, and we also provided you the how to use them and when to use them, and what's the best case scenario when to use a lot of these brand new tools. And remember that Eagle and Fusion have a really nice bidirectional workflow. So we'll be doing a webinar based on electromechanical workflow options between Eagle and Fusion later in the month as well. And if you're anywhere in Santa Clara and you're going to PCB West, please come by to say hi. Greatly appreciate it. Also, what is the best way of using a vector file like SVG for board dimension silk screen? We don't really have true support for SVG, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Your best bet is to maybe go online and find something to convert it to something else. Hopefully a DXF would be my best bet.
Yeah, you could also
I
import
don't
it.
know if that's even
You
possible.
could import it into Fusion. That would work also, because Fusion can do an SVG import. Eagle right now, the best it can do on its own, not involving Fusion, is a bitmap import.
A
That's the best one.
bitmap, and if it's an outline, maybe DXF.
Yeah, if it's an outline, DXF would work.
If it's a logo, yeah, bitmap. Hopefully, keep it within. Um, I would say keep it under as monochrome, two colors.
Yeah.
I mean, it's able to support many more, but for every color, it uses a different layer. So the simplest form would be to be monochrome. That way, it's only two layers only. Okay. Um, yeah, you're absolutely right, Cynthia. That is a really good idea. I will. I'll let them. How can you invert your PCB for UV exposure? I don't think we have something like that right
No,
now. No.
what you have to do, the best way to get that inversion is you can export the board as an image using cam to image is one option, and then in Paint invert the colors or whatever graphics program you want to use. That's one option. What
We could invert on Gerber.
Right, the PS inverted, the PostScript drivers, those require old cam jobs, so you can't make it on a new version of Eagle. But if you did it before, then you could use that cam job on the newer versions of Eagle, because the newer versions of Eagle still can run the old cam jobs and all the old drivers. So those would be my recommended ways. Get
Yeah, but isn't there a ticker now on Gerber that you could
you can invert the Gerbers, but if he's saying for UV transfer, printers
Oh,
don't
okay.
print
That's right.
Gerbers.
Okay. Okay, that's right. He did say UV transfer. Yeah. So I guess it's just exporting it and then using
A paint program of some
some sort
sort
of a
to
paint
invert them.
program, Photoshop, Illustrator, or something along the lines of that.
I used to do it with paint when I in a previous job.
Okay. More usable. Is bitmap still the way to go when adding pictures, logos? Yes,
Yes, this
bitmap is
was
still the way to go. Yes, it still is. Suggestion: observe the struggles of a new user trying to manage parts in the library. Okay, so you have my email there, Factory. If do you have any questions? I added
is that Factory 400?
yeah.
Yeah. Hey, you need to fill out an application I sent you, Factory.
Hey, did you hear Jorge? Yeah, he emailed you some some information that he would like to get from you. So please make sure to answer him if you have some time.
Yeah.
At your best available. Okay, manage parts. Okay, yeah, you are correct. But you know they're doing some really nice updates to the library, whole the way it works. To be honest with you, ever since we became part of the Autodesk family, the improvements that have been done to the library whole platform are it's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
You know, our sorts of the array, the package generator. I mean, it's quite vast. So, but there is room for improvement,
And there's a lot more coming anyway.
and
So
the developers are all over it, you know. And so what you're seeing now is they keep on making more foundation for the nicer things that are coming about. So you'll be seeing a lot more as we continue to go. So I'll echo factory 400 WRT to library. Okay, yeah, okay. I got you 83. That's fine. 83 or 83.
yeah.
This is his name. Okay, well, thank you very much. I don't see any other questions. I'm going directly to our different pages. And thank you for our YouTube friends for joining us again. It's been a pleasure and an honor to be with you. Hopefully, you got the information that you need to optimize your workflow with Eagle throughout your board and your schematic as well. And your managed libraries with managed folders is a really big opener for your collaboration that were needed. So I'm assuming that a lot more people are going to be assigning maybe a librarian if you like work on in a, let's say for example, in a hacker space, or a lab space, or some sort of a sharing environment, or for a company, or for professors with their students. They'll creating managed folders, and they'll invite all their students over. That way they use those same values. I could see a lot of value on it, as I told you earlier, Jorge. um, there's some designs that we actually wanted to simulate, and he did have those models already done. So I told him, can you make a shared folder, that way, a managed folder, that way I could just take advantage of those and use them on a design that we're just experimenting with. So there's a lot of new powerful tools. Take advantage of it. And as I always like to recommend, please make something and make the world better for us. Everybody have a great day. Jorge, great job. Thank you for doing it.
Bye, everyone. See you
It's
next
been a
time.
pleasure. See you next time. Have a great day. Bye now.
Bye.